everyone. Hey guys, we're back. We survived Hurricane Ian. This is actually our first live since Hurricane Ian. So it's good to be back. And I've got my moderators, Jackie, I got my moderator, Blake, and I've got Chris at the helm behind the scenes driving some of our information for us. And tonight we've got a lot of firsts for you. So we're going to do our first presentation, which Jackie is going to be presenting on presumptive. And we're going to try and do a t-shirt giveaway. So what you have to do, we found this out on another live, is you have to enter exactly what you see on that screen, hashtag VACVHV, all in caps. Just hit it in that comment section and hit enter. And you will be entered in to win one of our great t-shirts. Yeah. And the winner will be announced at the end of this. So you'll have to stick around and see who wins. But be sure to enter hashtag VACVHV in the comment section. And we will go ahead and spin at the end and see what we're doing. And we're going to give it a couple minutes here. We're going to say hello to everybody. And before we get started with Jackie giving the presentation, and then afterwards, we're going to roll into questions and answers for everybody. So this should be a good presentation because I know a lot of us are wanting to know about presumptive. And I see a lot of people are doing that hashtag correctly. That's the way to go, guys. And at the end, you'll see. So LG, thanks for coming from South Carolina. Appreciate you coming on. Hey, BFF, Tracy, and Aaron from Travel or Bust. Thanks for coming on and supporting us. I appreciate it, as always. And hey, Joe, how you doing from Michigan? Appreciate you coming on as well. We've got a great show tonight, so hopefully you guys will get some good information out of this because I know a lot of veterans with presumptive are going to want to hear this information, so it's going to be real good. So again, put that hashtag VACVHV, like I see some of you guys doing in that comment section. And at the end, we'll spin the wheel and we'll see who's going to get that free t-shirt. Hello from Pittsburgh. That's a kind of an interesting name. What is that? Black Misk? Oh, that's interesting. How you doing? Thanks for joining. I hope you enjoy the presentation as well. And I see several other people are joining us. Hey, Jay, how you doing? Thanks for coming again. We appreciate it. As always, all our supporters coming on here. And I know you guys got questions too, so it's always nice to have those questions answered. I know we're getting some new folks this time, which is really awesome. This is like more than I think we've had, guys, right, Jackie? Right, Blake? This is pretty good. Yeah. So again, there's the hashtag one more time, and then I think we're going to go ahead and we're going to roll into this presentation. And then what we're going to do is from there, we'll take questions regarding the presumptive presentation and any other questions everybody's got. So be sure you put your questions in the comment section. Chris will keep an eye on that and we will get to them. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with the presentation. You ready, Jackie?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it.
All right. So we're going to talk about Southwest Asia, chronic diseases, cancers, and presumptives. So there's a lot of misconceptions about what's presumptive, what's not, what VA concedes and what's not. So we're doing this presentation to kind of clear things up and kind of like break everything down Barney style prior to the PACT Act coming out. And then when the PACT Act comes out, well, prior to the PACT Act coming out, we'll probably do another presentation kind of explaining what that will entail. So first, we'll break it down with the basics. So for direct service connection, it's the most common way to get service connected for something. You claim in service. So a direct grant of service connection requires three things. Requires medical evidence of a current disability, evidence of the occurrence or aggravation of a disease or injury in active military service, and medical evidence of a nexus or link between the current disability and the in-service disease or injury. So this is going to be important to remember going forward in this presentation. All right, so the Persian Gulf War Veterans Benefit Act authorizes VA to compensate any Gulf War veterans suffering from a qualifying chronic disability resulting from an undiagnosed illness or a combination of undiagnosed illnesses appearing either during active duty service in the Southwest Asia Theater operations during the Gulf War, or to a degree of 10% or more within a presumptive period following service in the theater. They further passed an act that was Section 202, which expanded upon that previous act that further explained that a medically unexplained chronic multi-symptom illness, such as chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, or functional gastrointestinal disorders, they're defined by a cluster of signs or symptoms, and any diagnosed illness that the Secretary of the VA determines and regulations warrants a presumption of service connection. To fulfill the requirements for chronicity, the claimed illness must have persisted for a period of 6 months. The 6 months period of chronicity is measured from the earliest date on which all pertinent evidence establishes that the signs or symptoms of the disability first became manifest. Okay, so what qualifies for Southwest Asia based under the CFR 3.317. So this is Southwest Asia, like multi-symptom chronic undiagnosed illnesses that we're talking about, or chronic fatigue syndrome or fibromyalgia, or the gastrointestinal diseases. So a qualifying veteran is a veteran who served on active military, naval, or air services in the Southwest Asia Theater of Operations during the Gulf War period. So the VA defines the Gulf War period that extends from August 2nd, from 1990 to a date yet to be determined by the law or presidential proclamation. It begins on the date following the last performance of active military, naval, or air service in the Southwest Asia Theater of Operations during the Gulf War. So the day that the military member left the theater of operations, and this extends through December 31st, 2026. Now, we know there might be forthcoming changes to this, but currently this is what the laws and regulations say. So for presumption of or presumptive service connection across the board, a military member must have at least 90 days of active duty service for presumptive service connection. And the condition must become manifest either during active military, naval, or air service in the Southwest area of operations, or to a degree of 10% or more no later than December 31st, 2031. Oh, I so apologize. I think I am not going quite with the slides. All right. So, for the chronicity, we already touched on that. To establish service connection for a disability under 3.317, the claimed disability must be chronic. So it must have persisted for a period of at least 6 months. We measure the 6-month period from the chronicity from the earliest date on which all pertinent evidence establishes that the signs or symptoms of the disability first became manifest. If a disability is subject to intermittent episodes of improvement and worsening within a 6-month period, consider the disability to be chronic. So when VA reviews all the records, they're supposed to review all the records. So if it's intermittent, they're supposed to consider that when they're considering the chronicity. It's not supposed to be just the most recent evidence of record. It's supposed to be based on the whole evidentiary record to determine if it is chronic or not. And who qualifies for Southwest Asia, MUCMEs, or the undiagnosed illnesses? Again, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, or the gastrointestinal illnesses. So as defined in 3.317, it's Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, the neutral zone between Iraq and Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Oman, the Gulf of Aden, the Gulf of Oman, Persian Gulf, the Arabian Sea, the Red Sea, and the airspace above these locations. Interestingly enough, if you can prove that your flight plan flew above these locations while you're on active duty, then yes, you qualify for presumptive service connection for the identified disability conditions or the chronic undiagnosed conditions. Or if your ship, or if you're in the Navy or whatnot, if you were in like the Gulf or these designated water spaces, which they'll pull the ship logs and see if where your ship was going or where they ported, whatnot. So I know I said MUCME a lot. I know a lot of people probably don't know what I'm talking about, so I'm about to tell you. So what is a MUCME? A MUCME is a medically unexplained chronic multi-symptom illness in which there is a diagnosed illness that has either an inconclusive etiology or an inconclusive pathophysiology. It has overlapping symptoms and signs and features such as fatigue and pain, disability out of proportion to physical findings, and inconsistent demonstration of laboratory findings. These MUCMEs often confuse doctors, and you've often heard of Gulf War syndromes or people not feeling well, and then they can't find out why they're having these symptoms. Well, that's a MUCME. So the difference between the presumptives and qualifying chronic illnesses is presumptive illnesses that can be linked to Gulf War illness are chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, and functional gastro disorders. Functional gastro disorders do not include structural gastrointestinal diseases, and we'll touch on that again in the next slides. But this includes inflammatory bowel diseases such as ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease, GERD. These conditions are considered to have an organic or structural disease categorized by abnormalities seen on X-ray or endoscopy or laboratory test. So qualifying chronic disabilities under 3.317. Now, these are qualifying disabilities. These are not presumptives. These are qualifying disabilities that may be considered due to your service. So as listed, it can include joint pain, headaches, abnormal weight loss, fatigue, muscle pain, neuropsychological signs, symptoms, sleep disturbances, neurological signs or symptoms, gastrointestinal signs or symptoms, of course, with the previous caveats, menstrual disorders, respiratory signs and symptoms, skin signs and symptoms, cardiovascular signs and symptoms, obviously not an inclusive list, and I listed that. By history, physical examination, and laboratory tests cannot be attributed to any known clinical diagnosis. So the whole point is it's a diagnosed illness or a diagnosed illness with a partially explained etiology, and that is what makes it attributed to Gulf War. So to further elaborate on gastrointestinal signs or symptoms, I'm not going to beat a dead horse here, but so the functional gastrointestinal disorders, so GERD, anything, and I'm sure Blake could probably articulate this a lot better than I could, but anything that has like a structural issue, like GERD, hiatal hernia, colitis, would be considered not due to Gulf War. Now, IBS, functional vomiting, functional constipation, bloating, abdominal pain, those could be attributed to Gulf War syndrome.
And just so everybody knows, this will be up for everybody to see too. If you want to go through the slide after Jackie presents and you want to go back and look at it, it'll be there for you guys too.
Sure.
You can think of structural as anything they could take a picture of and show you, like an ulcer on a scope or a hiatal hernia or a polyp. Right. That's structural.
Okay.
All right. This is probably my favorite slide. So what is not a chronic multi-symptom illness of partially explained etiology or pathophysiology? So GERD is not a result of Gulf War syndrome. Chronic multi-symptom illnesses of partially explained etiology and pathophysiology, such as diabetes or multiple sclerosis. Nope, can't do it. A disability that is affirmatively shown to have resulted from a cause other than Southwest Asia service may not be compensated. So,
a lot of people think sleep apnea is, and it's not.
It is not. And I'm sure some people got granted on it too, but it's not. So,
right.
Yes. You know, if the etiology is found to be due to something else, then, you know, it's not due to Gulf War service, then it's
right.
And sleep apnea, the references actually say that it can't be attributed to Gulf War syndrome. So,
right.
And then, of course, if there's affirmative evidence that the disease is a result of the veteran's own willful misconduct or the abuse of alcohol or drugs, or if there's affirmative evidence that the disease was caused by supervening conditions, events that occurred between the veteran's most recent departure from a qualifying period of service or the onset of disease. So basically, there has to be evidence showing that it wasn't due to Gulf War. So, tied up with a neat little bow, what must the evidence show for service connection under CFR 3.317? So the evidence must show that the veteran was exposed to specific Gulf War environmental hazards. It also must show that the veteran has a diagnosis of a disability or chronic undiagnosed disability. So I know that sounds counterintuitive, but say the veteran doesn't know better and he thinks he has asthma, but the doctor's like, no, he doesn't have asthma. He has shortness of breath, or, and then, you know, you catch that and then you say, okay, well, we're going to send him for a Gulf War exam because shortness of breath is, you know, it can be service connected under the Southwest Asia 3.317.
Right.
So even though it's not like a proper diagnosis, it's recognized as the veteran having like a disability that's hopefully the examiner noted as being chronic if they're putting a name to it.
Right.
And then generally they require a positive medical opinion with appropriate rationale, and then review of a fact sheet saying that they reviewed that the VA concedes certain types of exposures based on the service in Southwest Asia.
And I think also, right, Jackie, just because you serve there doesn't mean it's granted.
Right.
Right. So, a lot of veterans think presumptive means, okay, I served there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and claim this because it's presumptive. They actually still have to, in most cases, have it, correct?
Right. So, and that's what's so like confusing with the Southwest Asia and the burn pits and the environmental hazards. They have to actually say presumptive, because a lot of time what they're saying is they're just conceding that the veteran was exposed to environmental hazards, or they were exposed to something that may have made them ill. They still need that nexus that connects their illness to their military service.
Gotcha. Yep.
Yep. And then, you know, when they're adjudicating conditions with partially explained etiology, service connection can only be awarded on another basis, such as direct service connection, which was the first thing that we touched on under CFR 303, which is the general rating principles, or the presumptives under 3.307 or 3.309, which we will get into here in a minute. All right, so the next topic that we're going to talk about is claims based on exposure to specific Gulf War environmental hazards. So, so basically, this is going to be burn pits right now. So the Veterans Lay Statement of Exposure to an environmental hazard is basically taken at face value if it's consistent with the facts, places, and circumstances of the veteran service. So VA is really not going to call you a liar. If you deployed to Afghanistan and VA concedes they had burn pits, guess what? They presume that you probably had exposure to burn pits. Same thing with Iraq.
Got it. Yeah.
So they do it for Iraq, Afghanistan, and Djibouti. Generally, the Veterans Lay statements are sufficient to establish a occurrence of exposure as long as your DD-214 puts you in those areas, your personnel records, as long as there's evidence of record that can put you in those areas. Okay, so I guess I'll just say what everybody knows. Large burn pits have been used throughout operations in Iraq and Afghanistan to dispose of nearly all forms of waste. I guess I will not really beat a dead horse here either. So we know that they use jet fuel to accelerate the burn-in. Sometimes they burn human waste. Sometimes they burn stuff they really shouldn't have. And then all that smoke and awful stuff blew into our living areas, and we all breathed it in, and it was awesome. So VA concedes that.
Burn pits are bad.
Yeah, so bad. All right. So service connection based on burn pits. So service connection may be granted for disability. So direct service connection again may be granted for disability which began in military service or was caused by some event or experience in service. This would be considered an environmental exposure such as burn pits. If service connection is granted on the basis of exposure to an environmental hazard during military service, available evidence must demonstrate that the veteran was exposed to the environmental hazard during service and that a chronic disability associated with such exposure resulted and has been diagnosed. So there you go. You have your 3 elements of service connection.
Yeah. And guys, just FYI, when we're getting done with this, start putting your questions in there so we can answer any questions to this presumptive or any other questions you guys have. Just start putting them in the chat so that they'll be ready to pop up and we can answer them.
Okay. And then what the evidence must show. So there's competent lay or medical evidence of a current diagnosed disability or persistent or recurrent symptoms of a disability. We already talked about what will make a disability chronic. The evidence establishes that the veteran served in a qualifying location, and we already talked about what that requires. And the evidence indicates that the claimed disability or symptoms may be associated with the established event, injury, or disease in service.
Makes sense.
Okay, so moving on from burn pits, we have particulate matter. So everybody already probably knows this, but particulate matter is a complex mixture of extremely small particles and liquid droplets made up of a number of components, including acids, such as nitrates or sulfates, organic chemicals, metals, and soil or dust particles. The PM particle or levels in Southwest Asia are naturally higher than most of the world and may present a health risk to service members. Primary sources of particulate matter in Southwest Asia and Djibouti on the Horn of Africa include dust storms and emissions from local industries. So for presumption of exposure for particulate matter, also under 3.317, from August 2nd, 1990, you can all read the slide. I'm not going to read all the same countries again. The thing that changes other than the Persian Gulf War veterans is that on or after September 19, 2001, we also include Afghanistan, Syria, Djibouti, and Uzbekistan. And again, this also includes for presumptive service connection, you have to have at least 90 days of active duty service, which I don't know anybody who has deployed who has had 90 days or less of active duty service. So there's that. And then again, the Persian Gulf War hasn't ended by Congress or presidential proclamation yet. So. And then, okay, so excuse me for a minute. I'm just going to take a sip. All right, so now we're getting to actual presumptive diseases. All right, so no kidding, presumptive diseases here. So under 38 CFR 3.320, the following chronic diseases will be service connected if manifested to a degree, including 0% within 10 years from the date of separation from a qualifying period of military service. So asthma, rhinitis, and sinusitis, to include rhinosinusitis.
Jackie.
Yes.
Didn't the PACT Act remove the 10-year? Did you ever find that out? Because that was my understanding.
It is, but this is based on the current laws and regulations, and
Okay.
the following presentation of PACT Act will address that. So because we can grant earlier based on the current legislation,
Yep.
that's why I'm not addressing it with this presentation. But yeah, you're absolutely right. The PACT Act took a ton of the dates out.
Because I know we're getting a bunch of questions on that. When does the VA actually follow?
Okay, I'm gonna just
what gets
really
passed?
briefly touch on that. So VA is not rating any PACT Act claims until January 2023.
Thank you.
Congress allotted a ton of funds, and they needed time to allocate more personnel and train more personnel to prepare for the influx of claims to deal with the PACT Act. So
Got it.
although the VA is soliciting claims for PACT Act and Agent Orange and, Agent Orange in
Right.
Thailand and Korea and Gulf War, nobody's going to start getting rating decisions until January 2023. And if you got lucky, somebody really wasn't supposed to rate your stuff. So
Got it.
here we go. All right. So, so moving on from that. And I know it's confusing because the PACT Act's coming out, but, a lot of people can be retroactively or further granted back. So that's why we wanted to knock this one out first.
Right.
All right. So more presumptives. So presumptives for rare respiratory cancers based on particulate matter. So the following rare cancers, I'm sure Blake could confirm, you don't really see these cancers a whole lot. They're pretty rare and they're pretty specific too. So unfortunately, you could have a cancer right next to, something in your throat, and it really wouldn't, if it's not one of these specific cancers, then it wouldn't qualify. But the PACT Act is going to correct that glaring deficiency, which is amazing. So I'm not going to even pretend that I can pronounce all these.
Oh, you weren't going to go ahead and say each one of those?
No, but if Blake wants to, I invite him.
No, they can go back and look at it.
Perfect. And then for presumptive service connection, again, so a current diagnosed disability, persistent or recurrent symptoms of a disability, evidence that establishes that the veteran served in a qualifying location, 90 days of active duty service. The rare respiratory cancers will be service connected, even if they would be 0% at any time following separation from a qualifying period of military service. And then those chronic diseases, so it was the asthma, the sinusitis, and rhinitis, will be service connected to any degree within 10 years from the date of separation. And then a qualifying period of service is the Southwest Asia Theater of Operations. We already went over that. And then also Afghanistan, Syria, Djibouti, or Uzbekistan,
Yeah.
September 19th, 2001 and on. And we always have exceptions. So exceptions, the disease was not incurred or aggravated by qualifying period of service. The disease was caused by a supervening condition or event that occurred between the veteran's most recent departure from a qualifying period of service or onset of the disease, or the disease was the result of the veteran's own willful misconduct. Most of the time, the most common thing I think would be if you had a type of cancer and it spread and you try to claim something as presumptive, it's not, and it's not a primary form of cancer, then it can't be presumptive because it was caused by another form of cancer. That's, I think, probably like the most common scenario. And then really just to kind of wrap things up, this is, I did want to touch on this real briefly because these are presumptive service connections for infectious diseases, but they are really not common. As you can see, I mean, maybe West Nile virus or malaria look familiar, but these diseases are considered to be incurred or aggravated by service, even though there's no evidence of a disease during the period of service, with 3 exceptions. The disease must have been become manifest to a degree of 10% or more within a year from the date of separation from a qualifying period of service. Malaria must have become manifest to a degree of 10% or more within 1 year from the date of separation from a qualifying period of service, or at a time when a standard or accepted treaty indicated that incubation period commenced during the period of service. And then there's no time limit for, Lord help me, visceral leishmaniasis or tuberculosis to have become
Leishmaniasis.
Thank you. Thank you, Blake. And then, so the way the manual reads, it's a little confused, and a lot of people think this is only for Afghanistan, but that would be wrong. It's also for Southwest Asia veterans. Yep. And then Southwest Asia, Persian Gulf, it's for them all. So based on the dates of service. And then very brief, the Karma Alley Water Treatment Plant. If this applies to you, if you know you were there, I invite you to read this. If you have questions, please reach out. This is very uncommon. There wasn't a whole lot of people there. You would be a unicorn. I'm not going to even dive into it because it's so rare. And then the sulfur fire in Mishrak State Sulfur Mine near Mosul, Iraq. Again, not super common, pretty unicorn-like as well. This applies to you. Please, I invite you to reach out. Happy to talk to you. Not going to go into the specifics because it doesn't apply to 99% of the veterans we're speaking to. And then I think that might be it. All right. Yes.
All right.
Yes. Okay. So it was my pleasure presenting this, guys. I hope that it was informative, and I would love some feedback and what you guys think. And thank you, Stephanie and Blake, for allowing me to do this. So,
Jackie, thank you. Appreciate it. Because, a lot of that information on presumptive, people don't really know what it's about. And it's still confusing, but to be able to go through those slides and read them and be able to, go back and look at them. And if they've got now, like she said, anybody's got questions on what she just gave as a presentation, throw them in the comment section. I know we've got some questions pending. Don't forget, guys, subscribe to our Facebook group, VA Claims Veterans Helping Veterans. Myself, Jackie, Blake, Chris, and we also have Ashley. She's just stepped away. She's in school right now, but we're all there trying to help everybody. Also subscribe to my YouTube channel. I have informational videos out there as well. Just dropped one recently on the rating code sheet. It's pretty informative. It's a pretty good document that all veterans should have. And with that being said, let's go ahead and let's do some questions. I know we had a few questions that were pending, Jackie, while let's throw that out there too. For some of y'all that just joined us or stepped away, be sure to put that hashtag VACVHV in a comment section, exactly like that is. and hit the enter. You will be entered in to win one of my t-shirts, and we will pick a winner at the end of this presentation and make sure you get that. So let's go ahead and do some questions right now, because I know we had quite a few. So here we go.
The biggest takeaway
what, Blake?
The biggest takeaway from Jackie's presentation on, if you have some of those symptoms from the muckneys, get in and tell your physician about it. Make sure it's documented. It's the chronicity. It's not, well, I get a sinus infection once a year, so do I qualify? No, not really, because it hasn't gone on for the qualifying period of time.
Right. Excellent. Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, so many things are confusing about that, especially headaches. And I'm not even going to go there right now, but yeah, there's so many confusing things about that. All right. So here's our first question. So even if one went to none of these areas, but they did get exposed in training deployments that prepped units for deployments, and we had burn pits and jet fuel exposure, how do we prove training had that?
That is an excellent question.
It is.
So, a veteran is competent to provide a lay statement on the facts and circumstances of exposures and symptoms and whatnot. So, what I would do if I was that veteran is I would get buddy statements from anybody I served with and try to get a few of them so you can get like a little consensus. I would write and I would, so the VA's moving around like away a little bit from the 4138s. They want these certified statements on, what is it, Steph? Is the 101, 102?
The layman witness statements. They now want buddies, family, and friends to use the VA. It's the 10-10210.
Yes, that's it. So because it's almost like equivalent of being notarized, and
right.
Or you can use a 4138 and say this is like certified true for the best of my knowledge, or
right.
That. But yes, Jay, excellent. Yes, pictures, buddy statements, anything like you have is like evidence to prove that. If nothing else, your lay statements. If you only have your lay statements and they deny you, honestly, I would just, if you get denied, I would go to the board, because we tend to value the lay statements a little bit more, and they have that gray area to do it. It's not that the VA doesn't believe veterans, it's just the board has a little more gray area.
Yeah. Okay. So, didn't keep in touch as it was long ago. My military roommate passed away in 2019 from cancer, but we're there together. Can I just write a statement myself? 2002, no pics, etc. Well, yeah, it says, Jackie says you can write your own statement on the VA 21-4138, which is your statement in support of your claim, and give your own account narrative of you being there.
Yeah, and you know what, stuff like let me just add, like Google, like there's, I mean, people put everything on the web now, so make sure that there's nothing online that like confirms what you're saying, that other people are confirming that they had that stuff while they're that experienced the same things as you did while you were active duty.
Right. And there's other web-based places around that have forums with groups of people, and maybe see if somebody else is in one of those forums, or go in our group, see if somebody's there as well that maybe was in that area. That's a great idea. Kind of go to these different websites, Facebook groups. That's how I see a lot of people. Hey, I'm looking for so-and-so, so that might be a good idea, is to find that out as well. And see if you can go from there with that, because that was an excellent point on the exposure. All right, so I think that one's a good. Do we got another question coming up for us? All right. I think this is a two-parter. So Daryl is saying, I'm under a supplemental appeal for OSA, TMJ, and headaches. My original claim back in 2019 was OSA primary, TMJ and headaches secondary to allergic rhinitis, but they were all denied. And I believe there's a two-part to this question as well. Does it matter if they were filed direct, secondary, or presumptive so long as they were part of my original claim? I want to make sure I don't lose my effective date of 2019. Okay, I'm gonna give you guys a little bit. This is the gentleman I was telling you about earlier today. He filed in 2019, as he stated, he was denied. He filed a supplemental appeal for OSA, SA, sleep apnea, the TMJ, and the headaches. He is now trying to go to his exams tomorrow as secondary to PTSD. So, does that matter that he didn't have that originally claimed like that?
No.
Because it doesn't? Okay, because his original claim.
It might, I mean, as long as they ordered the exams asking for a secondary opinion, it doesn't matter how he originally ordered the claim, as long as they still kept the claim effective date open. He can claim it every which way under the sun as long as he wants, as long as he keeps that claim open. It doesn't matter.
So as long as those CMP exams tomorrow and Friday are for secondary medical opinions to his PTSD.
I mean, it doesn't matter how he's claiming it. As long as the claim has stayed open, he's good.
All right.
And his TMJ is much more likely to probably get rated under PTSD than it is going to be the rhinitis.
I'd say so.
We did keep the claim open effective. Yeah, and he did. So what happened is he filed originally in April 2019. He was denied in June of 2021, and his VSO filed for him in May of this year, 2022, within the 1 year. And now he's going to the exams because he is wanting to service connect secondary to his PTSD. So as long as I learned something new, because I thought you had to appeal what you had originally filed, but that's why there's so many people we know, such as yourself, Jackie, and others around, raters and people like that provide a wealth of information, because I didn't think that was correct, and I learned something. So I hope, Daryl, that helps you as well to answer your questions. Good luck with your exams tomorrow. Keep me updated for your exams tomorrow and Friday. And if you have any more questions, throw them our way. So we got another question here, guys, from LG. I went to a CMP exam recently. Got TMJ tonight. And the examiner diagnosed me for TMJ and bruxism. He said me having PTSD can cause it. Will I be denied since I don't have a paper trail? Currently, I'm in IDS. So he's still in.
I'm not. IDS is not my specialty. However, it's really going to depend if you have a diagnosis and if you have treatment for it while you're active duty. If you do, then there's certainly the probability that they will service connect it, or if it's a chronic disease, obviously, like if they diagnose it, they can service connect it. But
well, I'm a little familiar with it, and I'd like to ask a caveat off to this, LG. Are you going through med board right now? Are you looking to be medically separated, medically retired, or are you just going through your BDD process? What is prompting that question? Because that will kind of help lead me, because I have a little bit of familiarity because of my daughter medically retiring, but I believe that's what IDES is associated with.
Well, I mean, I went through the program too. It's just like there's criteria for it.
Right. And like I said, he hasn't followed up. Oh, yes, he did it. Yes, ma'am. 20-year medical retirement. So you're not getting out with your full 20 years? Medically retiring?
Why are you doing a 20-year medical?
No. Well, why are you not retiring? I don't understand why you're medically retiring. That's a little confusing to me. Hopefully. Yeah, I agree with that. Why don't we do this? LG, why don't you go ahead and email at that email address? And what I'll do is we'll go ahead and further discuss this amongst ourselves. Just send me a detailed email about your situation right now with IDS and where you are. And hopefully we can go from there and help you further. Because I don't want to sit here and kind of like be waiting for responses and stuff too. But, you know, oh, thanks guys for all you're doing to help vets. You're welcome, Daniel. I know you had a little struggles the other day with your appeal, but you'll get it. You'll see. I got you back on that one. So do we got awesome. Thank you so much. All right, LG. Yeah, go be sure to email us and we'll be sure to help you out for sure. Do we have any other questions? Any other comments? TMJ is separately compensatable. That was one of the things we were talking about earlier. It's interesting. I asked you guys that question about TMJ and Bruxum, and here we had two. All right. So I guess if we don't have any other questions for this, then I think what we'll do now is we're going to go ahead and do the t-shirt giveaway and see who our winner is. If you do not win a t-shirt and you want to buy one off of us, they're $40 plus shipping. And you can just email me at that email address and we'll get one out to you. So it's $40 includes shipping, and you just give us your information if you don't win one and you want one. So, oh, hold on a second. I think we've got one more question, Chris, from Daryl. Oh, we got actually two. So, Bubba, how often does the VA update the site so I stop checking 20 times a day?
We've all been there.
Yeah. I think we should get PTSD or anxiety ratings off of that.
Probably.
You know, I don't know. I don't know how they connect, because I know e-benefits is going away and va.gov is going to be more of the portal.
I don't know how accurate it is, but
I don't either. But Bubba, we've all been there.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I've hit that button so many times. And I think there was a question from Daryl. Yes, is it true HLRs take longer?
So on average, HLRs, according to the VA website, are taken between 4 and 6 months to have a decision review officer take a look at your higher level review. And if they find a duty to assist error, obviously that's going to add some time to your claim, because then your claim is moved to the supplemental lane for whatever action that the DRO deems that is needed. So it can feel like it's longer, but it's really not that long. And if you have some sort of hardship or specialty flash on yours, it's even quicker. They're moving those right along. So
yeah,
I don't think 4 to 6 months, like 4 to 5 months, 4 to 6 months is very long at all.
I don't
either. I mean, just think like a few years ago, they were waiting 2 years for like a regular rating. So, I mean, the VA is moving forward in the right direction, right?
Yeah, I know. I agree with the new AMA Act. I think it's changed a lot regarding appeals, at least too.
In regards to board reviews, you're probably thinking of legacy, which is phasing out. So yes, board reviews used to take years and years and years and years. So what they're doing is they hired a bunch of law judges to help clear the backlog for the legacy appeals. And they have the new appeals, the DROCs that are in DC, St. Pete, and Seattle helping clear that backlog as the judges do that on top of their regular duties. And then regular board reviews. I don't even know how long those are taken because under AMA, under the new appeal system, because some seem to be moving like through really fast and then some seem to take a lot longer. So I'm not really sure how fast those are.
Well, and this question from Daryl, I'm going to answer this as my own personal experience. I believe there are 3 types of appeals. Could you speak on these advantages and disadvantages, especially how long each takes on average? Well, Daryl, an HLR is basically a higher level review. You're not going to submit any new evidence. You're just going to go ahead and argue why you should have been approved for the claim that was denied without any new evidence. And basically under an HLR, they're just making sure they're dotting their I's and crossing their T's. Now, under an HLR, they do find some errors. That has been coming up a lot under the HLRs. Supplemental claim, which you're in right now, you're providing new evidence to support your appeal. And in addition, the VBA will then review that new evidence under the supplemental. And then there's the judge. My own experience, I did several HLRs and always got denied, went to the judge granted. So a lot of times I think the judges have more, I don't know, I don't want to say knowledge. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jackie, but I feel like the HLR, doesn't it still stay at the RO's level? And
it does, but I'll tell you what, those DROs are pretty liberal. I got to be honest with you. They're pretty liberal. If you're concerned about time frame, it is dependent. Every claim is different and you really have to consider all aspects and what you're claiming and what you have for evidence of record, because it's a closed record. And then when you do stuff for the board, that you can submit new evidence and whatnot.
Right.
In some cases, it is better to go to the board. But I got to tell you, like those DROs, they're liberal.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe you got the wrong DRO, but I see a lot that I'm just like,
you can go directly from a claim being denied. You can go directly to the judge. You don't have to do an HLR and a supplemental, correct? You could just go to the judge, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Right.
But
so, it's really up to, see, and I guess I'm biased because I never won an HLR.
Yeah, and it could be, but I've seen like a lot of claims won by HLR. So again, like if I'm reviewing somebody's claim, it really depends on what their claim and what the evidence shows.
Right.
And all that stuff. It's hard to say. It's really a case by case. It's really a case by case basis.
All right. So Steve has a question. Thanks. How many claims are RVSRs working at one time?
Duh. One. Can't work more than one claim at once, right?
Right. But their caseloads?
Well, since it's public knowledge, they do have standards, which there's points assigned and whatnot. But they're expected to rate. I can't really speak intelligently on the regular service center, but for appeals, I know that they have to work at least 3 or 4 claims a day to meet their production.
Right.
So that's their goal, to work 3 or 4 claims in an 8-hour period to meet their production.
So before Chris, take off Douglas, can you put up Steve's follow-up to his that we just asked? He asked about the RSVR. He's got a follow-up to his So I called the 800 and was told my claim was in the decision phase with the rater. Well, that's Steve, when you call the 800 number, you're basically getting somebody that's just boilerplate. They're just looking, yep, it's in the decision phase. And that could mean anything, because if that rater finds something that they need to now, oh, wait, I need to go back and look at something, then you're going to go back to the gathering of evidence, and you're going to go back and they're going to review more evidence. So while you're in that decision phase, you could bounce around quite a while in that kind of stages, because claims have, I believe it's like 8 stages, and they've lumped it now on va.gov. So they show like gathering of evidence, review of evidence, and getting ready, I think, for decision or something like that. So while you might be in the decision phase now, like I said, if the rater's ready to rate and they've got everything, then you're going to keep going. If the rater finds something and they need to go back, then you're going to go back. So there's really no time frame to, and in my opinion, I want the rater to do it first. I mean, I want them to do it right the first time. So to me, when it's bouncing, Jackie, and back and forth, I feel like they're doing, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like, all right, they're looking at something. All right, it's got to go back here for an opinion, or, oh, we missed this, we need that.
If my claim was an RFD and I saw it bounce back or something, I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. Because the rater saw something. They were like, maybe I shouldn't make a decision on this. Maybe I need a little like clarification. Maybe I shouldn't deny this. Maybe I can grant it. I feel like that is more, I'm not saying it's always positive. I'm just saying that somebody's doing their job.
That's what I think when I see it bouncing around like that. So I know, Steve, have patience. I know you got this. It's just, it's the hurry up and wait model.
Look, they don't want claims sitting in people's queues for a long time. So if it's ready for a decision, it's sitting in somebody's queue. So
yeah,
anything past 5 days, they're going to start complaining.
All right, next question. Can OSA be secondary to chronic fatigue syndrome?
What's up, Blake?
Blink.
If you can find a physician that will write the nexus, yeah, it can be secondary. Basically.
Yep.
Will it, is that nexus believable? Do they have the research to back it up? All that's going to play a part of it. A nexus is not simply a doctor writing a letter that says, yes, I think it's more likely than not that condition A caused condition B, because anybody can say that. I mean, I've been offered money in the office. If you'll just write me a letter that says this, well, you're asking me to say that, to rank your problem, say that your problem was more than likely caused by something that happened in service, when there's 12 other things in front of that more than likely caused it. I'm not going to put my reputation on the line like that.
But you have a lot of paid for nexus people out there that will write any and everything for a veteran regardless. And that's
right.
Don't worry. They know all their names.
I know. So guys, we are going to stop the questions. The ones that are already in the queue, you're there. Please don't give us any more questions to answer live. However, remember, you can email them. We'll pop that up after this question, the email again, and submit all your questions. But what questions we have here now, we're going to cut it and answer those so that we can kind of wrap this up. So LG, when it comes to 100% PNT, do you have to apply for it? No, you don't. If you're 100%, I'll give you an example. I was 100% total for 4 or 5 years because I had a rating that had a future exam. So I could not be 100% P&T. Therefore, when I went to my future exam and it went static, I thus became P&T by the rater. Now, I know you see a lot of veterans say, oh, you can submit a request to be P&T. You can do that. But most likely, if you have a future exam set for that disability, that's going to trump the rater to send you to that exam. You're not P&T for a reason. So Anyways, Daryl, if you go to a CMP exam and find out if they are cold and not cooperating with your exam or conducting the exam accordingly, what can be done? You can report them to the contracted facility. If being cold is one thing, but if they're being unethical or they're not, doing the biggest one I always find is like if they're not doing the exam properly. Like if you have an exam that requires, and Blake, what's the name of that?
A goniometer.
Thank you.
Boom.
Boom is required, then you know that the exam wasn't done properly, because a lot of those things require flex and extension, ROMs, and that.
Goniometer?
Yes. So you can always report an examiner to the contracted facility as well as the VA. I've let the VA know when I've had a bad exam by submitting a VA 2148. And I always tell veterans that's the best statement to use to communicate with the rater. If you need to get something to the rater, use that 214138. They'll read it. As soon as it's uploaded, it's probably within 24 hours, they can see it in their portfolio of your claim. That's the best way to communicate with the rater.
Yeah, I had my initial C&P exam. I had a fresh out of school physician's assistant do it. She'd never heard of the condition that I had. I spent 45 minutes of an hour exam explaining to her what my condition was.
Yep.
So, and it did not come back favorable. And I just went to my VSO and said, hey, this wasn't kosher.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
don't forget, nobody's going to advocate for you the way that you do. Not your VSO,
right.
not the doctor, not your friends, you. So if you feel like you got an unfair shake or you feel like there was something not quite right, you need to write the statement and you need to get it in so that it can be considered.
Exactly. Yep. Do we have any more questions, or are we done with questions? All right. So if you have any more questions, guys, Chris, can you pop up that email one more time first? And send any and all emails here. We'll get to them, I promise, and we'll get you answers. So just send us those questions, and I promise we'll get to them. All right, so now what we're going to do one more time, if you have not put this in the comment section, hashtag VACVHV, type that in now to enter in the drawing, and we're going to spin the wheel, and we're going to see who our winner is tonight for this shirt. All right, so Chris, I think you're going to take the wheel on this one, right? Let's do it. Here we go.
Where's Chris? Come on.
Well, Chris is going to put up the wheel. So he's like behind the scenes.
Many excuses.
Yeah. What's going on? We don't see it. All right, you're up. You're up.
There's a wall.
There's a wall. We see a wall. There he is.
Oh,
there's the behind the scenes man.
Do you not see it?
No, we cannot see it.
She's the winner.
Hold on, guys. We're having technical difficulties here. We cannot see it.
Oh, I gotta share it.
Yeah, duh.
Okay, so somebody did ask the question if how much weight was put into a personal statement. I think it was Daryl.
Yes.
Asking if the readers really read the personal statements and how much weight did they carry.
Oh yeah, of course they do. We
carry a lot. They carry a lot of weight, Daryl.
So veterans are competent to describe. So they're not competent to diagnose themselves. They're not doctors, but they're competent to describe symptoms or the circumstances of their exposures or injuries or whatnot.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you that from my personal experience, and of course I am a physician, I had no medical records. it was my personal statement because I had been treating myself for almost 20 years. And that's all I had.
But I'm a firm believer statements are good, whether they're from family, friends, or yourself. They're good.
And with the PACT Act, I don't know if anybody has actually read it line by line like I had, because I'm a nerd. So they're actually like legitimately saying this shit is legitimate. Like, you have to consider it.
Yeah.
They're saying, that these considerations have to be made. So
Yep.
it's quite remarkable how far we've come from being very difficult to service connect anything to almost making it very easy.
Yeah. And it gives a personal statement. It gives a personal side to the claim too. So, all right, I think we're ready. Are we, Chris? Are we ready?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's see who's going to win this shirt tonight. All right, guys.
Here. I got to share my screen.
And we tried this earlier and it worked.
Is it up now?
No, we don't see it.
Everybody's just so lucky to see his pretty face now.
I know, right? Oh, wait a minute. Something's coming up. There. Well, we didn't get to see the spin, but there's the winner. Joe Cochran, who already bought a shirt from me, has won another shirt.
Hey, ask him, can I spin again?
Hey, Joe, are you still on here? Can we spin again? And I'll send you like a coffee or something. You know what? I don't think he wants another shirt. No, he already bought a shirt. All right, let's spin again, Chris. Let's draw again, and I'll get with Joe.
Is it up?
It's up.
All right, here we go.
All right, draw again. There we go. Hey, we're even in there. If we win, I'm out.
I didn't put my name in.
Daryl! All right, my buddy Daryl, you have won a shirt from VA Claims, Veterans Helping Veterans. Woohoo! Jason, spin that bitch. All right, so Daryl, go ahead and shoot me your address and email, and I'll get the information from you, and we'll get that shirt to you. Joe, you already bought one. Thanks for already supporting us. I'll get with you on something else because you still deserve something. So, all right, guys. Again, email us with any questions. This was a great turnout. Thank you, Jackie, again for the presentation. It will remain on YouTube, so you guys can go ahead and look at it at your leisure. And I think we're going to do another one. Are we good on target again to do our 1 in 2 weeks?
I am.
Yeah, I was thinking we're going to probably do the PACT Act one in 2 weeks and then the Q&A after, right?
Yeah, I think that's what we're going to do, guys. I think we're going to go ahead and follow up with the PACT Act. Jackie's going to do that. And just like tonight, and then we'll open it up with questions. So, all right.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Everybody.